Hey, thanks for joining us this week for a weekly devotional video where we're going to look at the book of Daniel. Last week we began the book talking about its genre. It's a story, so it's a narrative, but it has these apocalyptic elements where someone is interpreting a vision, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that today. We also learned last time that Daniel and his friends had certain battles that they picked about where the culture that they lived in challenged their identity as faithful followers of God. Remember, this is in the Jewish time before Jesus. We're going to pick up in Daniel chapter 1, verse 8 right now. So we read, Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food and wine given to them by the king. And he asked the chief of the staff for permission not to eat these unacceptable foods. So within this time frame, in the 6th century BC, Jewish law dictated that there were certain things they could and could not eat. A couple of the directions were that you had to drain the blood from an animal before you prepared it. Another example was that they weren't supposed to eat pork or other certain kinds of animals. Well, they weren't in control of the food that was given to them, the meat, how it was prepared. So these young men took a stand on that because the directives given about the diet were so that these people would stand apart, so that they would be holy to the Lord. And that's what holy means, set apart. And so by taking a stand here, they're maintaining that status as people who are set apart for a purpose, in this case, to honor God rather than men. And so we might want to say this is the first point today, is that you need to determine what those items are for us to take a stand on, because there are plenty of things that we need to take a stand on. As a church, we publicly will say that we take a stand against abortion. That's a public stance that we as a church take. We support organizations in that. We have decided we are going to stand out in that way. And there are some other things as well, but that one we talk about frequently. So I'll mention that here. Now, in this particular example, it had to do with food. And just so we're clear, believers, after the time of the New Testament, have a story told to us by Peter about how he saw a vision and God said, go eat any of that. I've made it all. You can eat everything, even bacon now. And so some of us are more thankful for that than others, but we get to enjoy the foods that God had originally told people that they weren't supposed to enjoy. And so we can eat things Daniel and his friends could not eat. So where you take your stand may not have to be food, okay? So as we read along in this particular story, the chief of staff was a little worried that because these four men, Daniel and his three friends, were eating a different diet, specifically vegetables, he was a little worried that they were not going to grow into the, strong-looking, sound-minded men that the king wanted for officials. And so Daniel understood, and he had a suggestion, a wise suggestion for that. He said, at the end of 10 days, see how we look compared to the other young men who are eating the king's food. Then make your decision in light of what you see. The attendant agreed to Daniel's suggestion and tested them for 10 days. And then we find out that at the end of these 10 days, he actually feels like Daniel and the friends look better than the other men. And so he lets them continue on with their special diet instead of what was provided for them. And as they continue on, we find out in verse 17, God gave these four young men an unusual aptitude for understanding every aspect of literature and wisdom. And God gave Daniel the special ability to interpret the meanings of visions and dreams. So just right off the bat, I want to make one thing clear. Becoming a vegetarian is not going to make you very skilled at literature, and it's not even going to give you the ability to interpret the meanings of visions and dreams. That's not what was special here. Okay? The thing is that Daniel and his friends remaining faithful in the face of trials showed that they were people who trusted the Lord. And God shows favor to his people. In this case, it was letting them thrive right there where they were. And so they're being trained for wisdom. God gives them a special measure of wisdom, and God gives a special gifting to Daniel about interpreting visions and dreams. So I want to make it clear there that just because you take a stand on whatever issue it is that you take that stand on, doesn't mean that you're going to get $1 billion yacht. Doesn't mean you're going to have plenty of money in the bank account always. It just means that God is going to see you as one of his people. And as a general rule, God takes care of his people and provides for them. So we're going to move on to verse 19. Now, at the end of this time, the king talked with them, the young men, and no one impressed him as much as Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the royal service. Whenever the king consulted them in any matter requiring wisdom and balanced judgment, he found them 10 times more capable than any of the magicians and enchanters in his entire kingdom. And so because these three young men and Daniel were so faithful to the Lord, he gave them special gifts. And when God gives these gifts, he does something unique and special that no talent or raw ability is able to do. So, for example, when we are given spiritual gifts, when we follow Christ, those gifts are orders of magnitude better than anything that comes with raw talent or ability that is innate to us. Now, a gift of teaching may look like someone else who's really good at teaching that's not following the Lord, but someone with the true gift of teaching is going to be orders of magnitude more effective at what they're doing because of this unique gifting from God. And that's the kind of gift that God gave Daniel and his friends. And that's the kind of thing that each of us who follow Christ gets in our own life circumstance. We have a unique gift that we can use to serve God. We're going to see how Daniel's gift plays out next week in chapter 2. Until then, I'll see you again next week. You can reach me by email, jallison@greenwoodbc.com, or you can come find me in between our services over at the information desk. I'll see you all again soon.